Hi, my name's Shawn Jansen. I'm joined by Shawn Lynch, and we're talking boys basketball. Let's turn our attention to the CCC, where we got some rivalry games on Friday night. Golden Valley at Merced and Golden Valley or Buhat Colony at Atwater. It should be a fun night.
Yeah, and for a couple of these teams, this is a pretty big night. You suffer that third league loss. Well, Merced already is sitting at 3 league losses. You could really find yourself out of the race going into the second half of the season. So Merced in particular needs to get going. Obviously, they've been competitive through their 3 games. I think it's 10 total points have decided those games, but they're 0-3. They got to find a way to close out in the fourth quarter of games that they've been controlling.
Yeah, you look at they had a 13-point lead against Buhat Colony, lost that game. Had a 7 or 9-point lead against Turlock, lost that game, and then they lose by 2 to Pittman. It's showing that they're right there. I don't know if it's a depth issue and they're getting tired in the fourth quarter, but they've got to take care of the ball. Turnovers kind of helped Buhat Colony and Turlock get back into that game, and then Merced just couldn't get momentum back on their side.
Yeah, and they got to get more consistent scoring from just more than A.J. Stewart and Jared Payson. Their bigs down low have shown they can do it in spurts, but they got to get a third scorer in there to kind of ease the burden on those guys that are clearly wearing down a little bit as the game goes on.
And there's not a bigger Jeremy Redwine fan than this guy sitting right here.
He's got that Kevin Love game that I really enjoy watching.
Let's turn our attention to Buhat Colony. They started out 2-0, rough loss against Turlock. They got a big week this week with Pittman coming to town tonight and then Atwater on Friday.
Yeah, for Buhat, it's all about tempo. Just like John Bliss said after that game, they let Turlock dictate it. If they let the other team dictate the tempo, they can't get their offense going because their offense is predicated off of forcing turnovers, getting out in transition. They weren't able to do that. They're not a great half-court set kind of team. They're not going to shoot a high percentage. And they don't have some of the stud scorers that they've had before. They got guys. Waleko does a nice job for them. He's pretty consistent, but they aren't necessarily your natural scorers. They're more your slashers and your get to the basket guys and just find a way to score. So they need to do it through defense, and if they can do that, they're going to have a shot night in and night out.
And they've been missing what John Bliss calls their most consistent player, Corey Woods, and hopefully he'll come back soon from the ankle injury. Atwater sitting at 1-2. We don't really know yet whether they're going to be near the bottom or at the top, fighting for a playoff spot.
Yeah, I mean, Atwater might have the best shooters in the league. Reggie Ricks and Kyle Anaya when they're on, they can just shoot the lights out. But defensively, they just don't get after it enough. They play soft occasionally. They let teams inside the paint. They give up offensive rebounds, and that's what's really hurt them through these first few games.
All right, Turlock and Pittman both look strong. Both look like they're going to be in it. So it may be the rest of our teams fighting for that last playoff spot.
Yeah, Habib Velasquez and Oscar Moreno have really given Turlock a nice 1-2 punch. And that John Doe Diaz kid's been shooting the lights out for Pittman.
Yeah, he's put up a lot of big point totals in some of the games so far this year. Turning our attention to the WAC, El Capitan, big win over Patterson last week. Really impressed with the play of Isaiah Knott. He had 27 points in the game, just handled the ball against Patterson's pressure all night, and just really played. I mean, he's what you want in a leader. He looks like a player of the year candidate. James Sellers with some clutch threes down the stretch to kind of get some separation at the end. El Cap looks like they're going to be in title contention all year.
Yeah, big one coming up on Monday night. They got Central Valley. It's a game that I think they're the more talented team, but Central Valley is very, very disciplined. They execute very well with what they do, and so that's something El Cap's going to have to be wary of. But I just feel like they have such nice balance with the Gauchos. They get contributions across the board. Like you said, Knott and Sellers are the two big stars as far as offensively goes. But Jared Latona, any given game, he can give you a double-double. They got Joshua Stewart, who, defensively and physically can take over a game. They got all kinds of contributions from, role players that understand their role and do a nice job with it. And I think that's kind of what sets them apart there.
Turning the attention on maybe one of our smaller schools, Mariposa. Nice run in the playoffs last year. They make a deep run this year. I can't remember the last time they lost a Southern League game.
Well, let me tell you, 30 games they've run off in a row. It was the 2012-2013 season. They lost the last one of the season to Rip and Christian. But, I mean, they are clearly the class of the Southern League again. The Rockwood kids, Noah and Dalton, they've been doing a nice job kind of picking up the scoring load this year after they lost a lot last year. But they clearly just continue to retool. They know what they're doing out there, and there's no reason to think they're not going to run through the table in the Southern League again. Behind them, you got Delhi and LeGrand sitting at 2 and 3 right now, and looks like they're both teams that could push for the playoffs.
All right. Well, again, rivalry games on Friday night. Golden Valley at Merced, Buac Colony at Atwater. Should be a fun night.